Well, hello everybody. Pastor Randy here. Welcome to Making It Simple. It is a beautiful Wednesday and hope that you are doing great on this beautiful day that the Lord has given us. We've been talking about making a trade. Obviously, we've been talking about fear and how it really impacts our life. And the reason that I really, as we think about the understanding of that, it really started in our childhood. You know, we talked about that yesterday, how we became fearsome of things. Oftentimes it was because of what we were told. Don't do that, don't do this, you're scared of this, you're scared of that. And it kind of got implanted into our thought process. And then as time would go by, as age would go by, those things would either take hold or we would realize that maybe they weren't true or what have you. But we also live, as I started off this series a couple of days ago, we live in an age to where fear is absolutely the tool used for control. You know, everybody, don't do this, don't touch that, don't breathe on this, don't look that way, don't be this close. We see on and on and on and on. It's fear, 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 fear. And there's always a foreign boogeyman that's going to get you and all these different things. Has fear overtaken you? We ended off the lesson with that yesterday. Has it? Because if so, what it's robbing you of life. It's not allowing you the joy, not only the joy of the Lord, but the joy of just living. Because once we're consumed by that, almost nothing else has room. It's almost like being full after a really, really big meal. You just have room for nothing else, or you just feel like you would just explode. Fear does that. Because it continues to take and take and take until there's nothing left. Has it overtaken you? What do we do? What do we do to overcome it? We see David in this psalm. He's facing his fears. And he says, when I am afraid, again, the acknowledgement that it comes. And we all have those moments. It could be in the dark. I mean, I got startled 2 nights ago in a dream, and it woke me up, and I mean, it really bothered me. It shook me. So that's real. When I am afraid, I will trust you. And of course, he's speaking to God. Where was that confidence based out of? What was the foundation of that? Well, see, David looked back over his life, much as we can. He looked back over his life and realized all the times that God was there. Because he realized that in many times throughout his life, throughout his very existence, that in the times of fear, God showed up. I mean, think back to when he was just a young boy and he's facing the giant Goliath. Now, understand this. It's one thing to meet a very large person. I had the chance to meet Andre the Giant many years ago when I was a young person, both as a kid and as an adult. Met another guy named George Gonzalez. He was almost 8 feet tall, 7'7", big giant man. Okay, it's one thing to meet an enormous person. It's another thing to believe and understand that that person wants to harm you. And we think of the size differential, we think of the power and the might, but then we think about the heart and the attitude. David meets Goliath. Goliath has one intention: I'm going to kill you. I'm 9 feet tall, maybe bigger, 5, 6, 700 pounds, an enormous human being. We can't even fathom that in this day and time. Although there's big, big people in the world today, it's hard to process that. But even harder to process one that is of that enormity, that has that level of hatred and wickedness in their heart, that they want to hurt you, because what could you do to stop it? Outside of having, some type of weapon, and hopefully you can move it and operate it quickly, you couldn't do anything about it. Here, David remembers that. And he remembers that in that moment, certainly there had to have been fear and concern. But when Goliath challenged him and said, you come at me with a stick and a sling or whatever, and David said, no, I come to you in the name of the Lord. And victory was had. He won. Fighting fear with faith is the key. I want you to hear that again. Fighting fear with faith is the key. In other words, friends, what do you truly believe? You see, we hear words all the time. We may have heard a good sermon. Maybe we've read our Bible. Maybe we've had someone pray for us or over us. Maybe we've prayed and we've heard all kinds of words of inspiration and encouragement and all these things. You can do it. You got it. All those different things. But what do you really believe? See, that's where the difference comes in. It's one thing to hear it. It's another thing to believe it. You see, faith, it's one thing to believe. It's one thing to say you believe. Many people, especially within the confines of believing in God, many people say, oh yeah, I believe in God. But it's an entirely different matter, an entirely different issue to live that faith out and to allow it to guide our lives, and even greater, to allow it to overcome our fears. You see, David said, when I am afraid, the time that I am afraid, I'm going to trust you. Think about that. It is the acknowledgement that the fear is real, but it is also the acknowledgement that on my own, I can't do this, so I'm going to trust you. Do we do that? Are we that willing to let it go, or do we continue to hold on to it like some kind of prize? Because it's not. Something that we hold on to should be something that benefits us, something that brings us comfort or joy or what have you. Only a solid faith can make such a firm statement. Although again, and I can't stress this enough, my friends, it cannot be just words. It's got to be real. You see, when we begin to look at moments, again, fear's coming, anxiety and all these different things are going to happen. That's real because fear is real. But what are we going to do with it? Do we just wrap our arms around it and hold on to it and say, oh, well, here's the newest thing I've got? Well, obviously not. That would be like trying to hug a cactus. Why would you do that? It's going to harm you. It's going to hurt. Okay, so what do we need to be in process of getting rid of it? That's not to say that it's not there, but how do I not let it defeat me? David says, when I am afraid, so he's acknowledging that I have those moments, I'm going to trust God. Faith, when it is true, faith, when it is real, it builds courage. It does. It builds courage. I'm not telling you that you're going to be 10 foot tall and bulletproof. You're not going to be Superman. You're not going to be the Incredible Hulk. No. But we've got a power on our side that will not fail us if we will trust in it. It's kind of like fishing. Okay, you've got the bait. You got the worm, the cricket, the minnow, whatever it is. But if you never throw it in the water, you're never going to catch the fish. Never. Okay? We've got the answer. It is our faith. It is what we believe, but even greater, it is what we trust. See, it's one thing to believe it. It's one thing to believe that, there's a chair in the room. You can believe it because you can see it. It doesn't require any faith. The faith is that it will hold me up when I sit in it. So therefore, I'm going to go sit down. I'm going to trust that it will work. What David is saying here, and this is what our faith needs to be saying to us, I know he will see me through. In other words, there's no doubt. Why? Because trust overcomes trembling. Think about that. Trust overcomes trembling. It was once said that when faith is exercised, fear is banished. When faith is exercised, a holy triumph follows. See, friends, how do we get there? How do we obtain this level of faith? Where do we get the ammunition? Where do we get the fertilizer? Where do we get what can help this grow? Where do we find this? Where do we exercise this? We find all the answers to different things in different places. But friends, when it comes to our faith and what we believe, there is only one source. You want to know what that is? Come see me tomorrow, right back here at Making It Simple, and we'll talk about that very thing. Remember, friends, we can do this. Faith overcomes fear every single time. Faith overcomes fear every single time. Trust overcomes trembling. What do you believe? Who do you believe? We'll talk more about it tomorrow, right here at Making It Simple.